The calm over Erebos Prime was fragile. Fires still burned in the ruined capital, and the air was thick with smoke and the smell of scorched metal. But for the first time in weeks, neither human nor Valkyr army attacked. General Caraveln stood atop the city walls, her armor scratched and scorched, yet her posture remained proud. Beside her was Captain Adrian Holt, his rifle slung loosely over his shoulder. For a long moment, neither spoke. Around them, soldiers from both sides cleaned weapons, patched wounds, and helped civilians. Kara finally broke the silence. This world, it survives despite everything. Your people's courage is remarkable. Adrian smiled faintly. They've always been remarkable. We just don't always believe it ourselves. She studied him. You, Captain Holt, you have changed the course of this war. He shrugged. We all played our part. Kara nodded slowly. Perhaps. But I did not expect to feel respect for a human. Yet you have earned it. I see it now. The Council's wrath above Erebos Prime, the Valkyr Council seethed. Reports came in. The General had disobeyed orders, halted the fleet, and prevented the destruction of a planet. High Marshal Valen's golden armor reflected the harsh lights of the Council chamber. Caraveln has betrayed us. She will be judged for her disobedience. Other Council members shouted, calling for her immediate recall and execution. But General Kara's actions prevented unnecessary loss of life, argued one voice. The humans are still here, yes, but the Dominion fleet is intact. We are not weakened. Valen's eyes narrowed. Weakness is not measured in numbers. It is measured in obedience. She disobeyed. She questioned the Council. That is treason. From that moment, Kara's fate was sealed. Either she returned to face judgment or the Council would send another force to remove her by any means. The return to the stars, Kara's fleet moved silently toward orbit. Adrian watched from the ground as her flagship, the Valiant Storm, rose above the city. I have to go, Kara said, her voice quiet. The Council will not forgive me for what I have done. Adrian shook his head. Do you regret helping us? Kara looked down at Erebos Prime, at the people rebuilding, at the streets filled with life despite the destruction. Regret? No, I regret not understanding sooner. Adrian nodded slowly. Then we will hold the city and live to fight another day. You've given us hope. Kara smiled faintly. And you've reminded me that strength is not only in the blade, but in the heart that wields it. Trial of the Blade. When Kara returned to Valkyr space, she faced the Council. The chamber was immense, the walls carved from shining black crystal. Dozens of Council members stared at her, their expressions cold. Valen rose. General Veln, you are accused of treason against the Dominion. How do you answer? Kara stood tall, her silver armor reflecting the Council's light. I answer honestly. I did not betray the Dominion. I upheld its honor by sparing innocent life. You disobeyed direct orders, shouted one counselor. And yet the fleet returned intact and the humans survived to this day. Kara replied calmly. I fought for the honor of the Dominion, not for blind obedience. The chamber was silent. Some council members whispered among themselves, unsure how to respond. Valen's voice was sharp. Your words do not excuse defiance. You will be stripped of command and tried for judgment. Kara accepted the sentence without fear. She knew she had done what she believed was right. An unexpected alliance back on Erebos Prime, Adrian continued rebuilding the city. Soldiers worked alongside civilians, repairing homes, clearing rubble, and planting crops. The human spirit was indomitable. One day, a communication beacon activated from orbit. The signal carried Kara's voice. Captain Holt, she said, this is General Kara Veln. Though I face judgment, I wish to speak of what I have seen. Humanity is not weak. You fight with heart, with honor, with unyielding courage. I have witnessed it firsthand. And I hope one day our peoples will understand one another. Adrian listened, his eyes shining. And we will, General, he said quietly. We will remember your courage. Around him, soldiers paused to listen. Even in defiance of empire, Kara's words carried strength. Proof that honor and understanding could cross even the widest chasm between species. The trial and reflection Kara's trial was swift. The council deliberated for days, weighing obedience against her undeniable skill and judgment. Witnesses spoke of her victories, her precision, and her ability to maintain order without unnecessary bloodshed. Finally, Valen declared, General Caraveln, while your actions disobeyed the Council. They demonstrated strategic brilliance and honor. You are stripped of command temporarily, but your life is spared. You may return to active duty under strict supervision. Kara bowed. Thank you. I will continue to serve, not blindly, but with the principles that guide true warriors. Even as she left the chamber, Kara carried a quiet satisfaction. She had defended her honor, preserved life, and learned that true strength was not only power, it was empathy, courage, and respect. A meeting of warriors months later. Kara returned to Erebos Prime, not as an invader but as an observer. The humans had rebuilt the city, stronger and more organized than before. Adrian waited at the landing zone. When he saw Kara step from her ship, he straightened and saluted. You returned, he said with a small smile. I promise to observe, Kara replied, and to see if humanity's strength continues beyond war. Adrian nodded. It does. And we remember those who fought for honor, not cruelty. Kara studied him for a long moment. You have taught me much, Captain. About courage, loyalty, and the meaning of strength. And you've taught me that not all enemies are the same, Adrian said. Some are worth understanding. For the first time, warrior and soldier stood not as enemies, but as equals, two beings from different worlds bound by respect. The first step toward peace over the following weeks, Kara coordinated with Adrian to ensure that no future conflict erupted on Erebos Prime. Both humans and Valkyr engineers worked together, clearing debris, building shelters, and exchanging knowledge of technology. The humans taught the Valkyr how to fortify without destroying, how to plan defenses while sparing lives. In turn, the Valkyr taught humans new ways to move, fight, and think strategically. Adrian and Kara often met atop the rebuilt city walls, discussing tactics, life, and philosophy. Slowly, a bond of trust and mutual respect formed, not friendship in the ordinary sense, but a warrior's understanding of another warrior. A lasting legacy years passed, and the stories of Caraveln and Adrian Holt spread throughout the galaxy. They became symbols not only of strength but of honor, respect, and hope. Valkyr soldiers told their young about the general who defied orders to save life. Humans told their children about the alien, warrior who learned to see strength and courage, and Erebos Prime became a place where both species could learn from one another. A beacon of cooperation amid a universe too often torn by war. Kara returned to her fleet not as a conqueror, but as a teacher and leader who valued life as much as victory. Adrian remained on Erebos Prime, guiding his people, always remembering the warrior who changed the course of history. And though both knew that the galaxy remained dangerous and full of conflict, they also knew something else, that even in war there was a place for honor, that even across worlds enemies could learn from each other, and that the heart could be as mighty as any blade. Final reflection, standing on the balcony of her flagship one quiet evening, Kara looked at the stars. She thought of Adrian, of the humans she had faced and learned to respect, and of the countless worlds she might visit in the future. Her heart, once driven only by conquest and victory, now held something new, a respect for life, courage, and the strength that came from protecting others. In that vast, endless galaxy, she understood the greatest lesson of all. True strength was not in defeating others, but in understanding why they fight and honoring the spirit that drives them. The universe was wide, life was precious, and she would fight not to conquer but to protect, wherever justice and courage demanded it. The war on Erebos Prime had reached its most dangerous point. Neither side was winning, both were simply surviving. The skies burned with fire from orbiting ships, and the ground below was scarred from endless battles. General Caraveln stood on the observation deck of her flagship, Valiant Storm. She had not spoken much since the last battle, the one where she and Captain Adrian Holt had been trapped together under the ruins. Many among the Valkyr whispered that the general had changed. She no longer spoke only of conquest. Instead, she gave orders to protect civilians, to reduce destruction, to fight with discipline rather than rage. Her second officer, Lieutenant Rin, noticed it most of all. General, he said quietly, some of the council members believe you are hesitating. Kara turned slowly. Her violet eyes were calm but sharp. Hesitating? Yes, Rin said. They say you are letting the humans survive longer than they should. Kara's voice was steady. They fight with courage. To destroy them without respect would dishonor us, Rin frowned. Respect for the enemy? That is not the Valkyr way. Then perhaps the Valkyr way needs to change, she said softly. Echoes of humanity on the human side. Adrian Holt was recovering from his wounds. The explosion had damaged his left leg, and though the medics had treated it, pain still followed him with every step. Yet he refused to rest. He continued to lead his soldiers, repairing defenses and planning the next move. "Sir," said Lieutenant Mira Chen, entering his tent, "we've intercepted a Dominion message. It's about you." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "About me?" "Yes," Mira said, handing him a small data pad. "They called you a threat, and they mentioned General Kara by name. Apparently the Council isn't happy with her." Adrian read the lines carefully. His expression darkened. "They think she's gone soft." Mira crossed her arms. "Maybe she has." "She let you live." Adrian shook his head. "No, she's not soft. She's strong enough to think for herself. That's what they don't like." He set the datapad down and looked at the map of Erebos Prime spread across the table. He could see it now. The Valkyr army closing in from 3 sides. Soon a massive offensive would begin. "Mira," he said quietly, "when it happens, we'll need to hold the capital city. It's the last shield we have left." She nodded. "And if they break through, then we make them remember who humans are," Adrian said, his eyes hard as steel. The Council's demand far above the planet, Kara received an urgent message from the Dominion Council. The holographic projection of the High Marshal, a tall Valkyr with golden armor, appeared before her. "General Kara Veln," the Marshal began coldly, "reports indicate that your progress has slowed. You have failed to secure Erebos Prime." Kara kept her voice calm. "The humans resist with great strength. They are not like the others we have conquered. They are weak creatures," the Marshal snapped. "You were chosen to lead because you were ruthless. Do not disappoint us now." Kara straightened her back. "With respect, Marshal, I believe ruthlessness is not the only path to victory." The Marshal's eyes narrowed. "You speak like one of them. You are losing your edge, General." Kara's tone hardened. "No, I am seeing clearly. They fight with something we have forgotten: purpose. They fight for their homes, their people, not for power." The Marshal leaned closer to the projection. "Enough. Your next order is simple. Destroy the human capital. Leave nothing standing." Kara froze. "That city holds civilians." "Then they will serve as an example," the Marshal said coldly. "Do this or your command will be taken." The projection vanished. For the first time in her career, Kara felt torn between duty and honor. She looked out the window, at the blue-green planet below, and whispered to herself, "Adrian Holt, what would you do if you were me?" The night before the end in the human capital, the soldiers prepared for what everyone knew was coming. The Valkyr fleet had begun to move. Adrian stood on the city walls, staring at the night sky filled with stars and enemy ships. The quiet before the storm was almost unbearable. Mira joined him. "You think she'll come?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes, Kara doesn't hide behind her ships. She'll lead the attack herself." "Then what do? "We hold," he said simply. "No matter what." He looked down at the city. The people building barricades, the medics preparing supplies, the engineers arming defense cannons. Everyone knew it might be their last night alive, yet they worked without fear. "Do you ever regret joining the army?" Mira asked softly. Adrian smiled faintly. "No. Because this," he gestured to the city, "is what we fight for. Not medals, not glory, just home." The storm breaks the next morning. The sky turned silver with the glow of hundreds of Valkyr ships. The ground trembled as their first wave of bombardment began. Human defense cannons fired back, lighting up the sky in bright streaks of blue and orange. Explosions echoed across the mountains. In the command ship, Kara stood silently as her officers awaited her order. "General," said Rin, "the Council's signal is ready. Once you give the command, the fleet will begin full bombardment of the city." Kara looked at the screen showing the human capital. Smoke already rose from its edges. She could see flashes of light, people fighting, not running. Her hands tightened on the console. "General?" Rin repeated. "Your orders?" Kara closed her eyes. The Council's words echoed in her mind. "Leave nothing standing." But another voice, quiet and human, echoed louder. Power without compassion leads to emptiness. She opened her eyes. Her decision made. Cancel the bombardment, she ordered. Rin stared at her, stunned. General? I said cancel it. The room went silent. Kara turned sharply. We will not destroy civilians. Prepare ground forces for honorable combat only. General, this is treason, Rin cried. Kara looked at him calmly. Then call it what you wish. But I will not become a monster to win a war. A battle of beliefs. When Kara landed with her troops near the city, the battle was already raging. Human tanks rolled through the streets firing at incoming Valkyr armor. Drones and fighters clashed in the air. Adrian led his unit through the ruins, his voice steady over the comms. Hold the east side. Don't let them break through. As explosions shook the ground, Kara advanced with her guards, her energy blade glowing blue. She fought fiercely but with restraint, disabling rather than killing whenever possible. Adrian spotted her from across the field. For a moment, the chaos around them seemed to fade. General Veln, he muttered. You came. She met his gaze through the smoke. I did not come to destroy you, Captain Holt, but I cannot stop what has begun. They clashed in the open square, their weapons sparking with every strike. Soldiers on both sides paused, watching their leaders fight. Adrian's moves were slower due to his injured leg, but his determination never wavered. Kara's strikes were precise and powerful, yet something in her eyes held back. She wasn't fighting to kill. You're holding back, Adrian said between breaths. So are you, Kara replied. Another strike, another clash. Then, an explosion nearby threw them both to the ground. As dust filled the air, Kara's communicator crackled. The voice of the High Marshal boomed through. Caravel, you defy us. Your command is terminated. Fleet, target her coordinates. Fire immediately! Her eyes widened. No! Adrian looked at her. They're going to fire on you? Yes, she said quietly. They will destroy everything. Me, you, this entire city. Adrian grabbed her arm. Then we stopped them. The Valkyr fleet above began to power their orbital cannons. Massive lights charged across the ship's surfaces. Adrian's eyes darted to the communication tower nearby. If we can send a signal to your fleet, maybe they'll listen to you. Kara nodded. My officers are loyal, but they fear the council. If they hear my voice, they may stand down. Together, they ran toward the tower, dodging fire from drones and falling debris. Adrian fired at attackers while Kara shielded him with her energy blade. Inside the tower, Kara accessed the communication system. This is General Kara Velen of the Dominion Fleet, she shouted. All ships, cease fire. The humans are not our enemy. The Council's pride is. Static filled the air. Then, a hesitant voice replied, General, are you sure? Kara looked at Adrian. I am. Then, we obey, the voice said. The lights in the sky dimmed. The bombardment stopped. A fragile peace. When the dust settled, both armies stood facing each other among the ruins. No one moved for a long moment. Then Kara stepped forward and lowered her weapon. Adrian did the same. Around them, soldiers slowly followed. The battle ended not in victory but in understanding. Kara turned to Adrian. I have betrayed my empire today, but I have kept my honor. Adrian nodded. And maybe you've saved both our worlds. She looked up at the sky where her ships hovered in silence. Peace will not come easily, but perhaps it can begin here. Adrian smiled faintly. It has to start somewhere. That night, as fires burned low and the stars returned above Erebos Prime, Kara stood beside Adrian on the city wall. You were right, she said quietly. Compassion does not make us weak. It reminds us why we fight. Adrian looked at her and replied, and sometimes, even enemies can fight for the same thing. They both gazed into the endless sky, knowing the hardest part was yet to come. But for the first time, there was hope. The war on Erebos Prime had stretched for many weeks. Both the Valkyr Dominion and the humans were exhausted, but neither side showed signs of giving up. General Kara Veln stood on the deck of her flagship, the Valiant Storm, watching the planet rotate below. Fires burned across its surface like faint orange stars. Each fire represented a battle fought. Some won, some lost. Her second officer, Lieutenant Rin, approached quietly. General, the Dominion Council is asking for progress reports. They are growing impatient. Kara didn't take her eyes off the planet. Tell them I will give them victory when it is earned, not before. Rin hesitated. They will not like that answer. Then they can come and fight the humans themselves, she said calmly. For the first time in her long career, Kara was not eager to crush an enemy quickly. Something about this war felt different. She had fought many races, but never one that refused to surrender even when defeat was certain. Every time the humans fell, they rebuilt. Every time they lost ground, they returned stronger, and at the center of it all stood one man, Captain Adrian Holt. The spirit that would not break on the human side, Adrian's camp had turned into a symbol of hope. The soldiers looked to him not just as a leader, but as a symbol of defiance. His arm had finally healed from his earlier wounds, though he still carried faint scars. He rarely slept, spending his nights studying Valkyr tactics and planning defenses. Lieutenant Mira Chen entered his tent carrying a tablet. "Sir, our supplies are running low. The outer colonies can't send help. Communications are jammed." Adrian looked up, his eyes tired but sharp. "Then we'll use what we have. Humans built this world once from nothing. We can build it again," Mira sighed. "You always make it sound easy." He smiled faintly. "It's not easy. That's why we'll do it." Outside, rain fell softly on the metal shelters. Despite the cold, some soldiers laughed around a small heater. They told stories about Earth, about their families, about old victories. Adrian listened from a distance, and a strange warmth filled him. He realized that even in the middle of war, humans found ways to stay alive in spirit. They could smile in the darkest hours. That, he thought, was what the Valkyr didn't understand. A new kind of enemy. Meanwhile, Kara studied every battle report carefully. She noticed patterns in the human strategy. They didn't fight for control of land or resources, and they fought for each other. Every decision they made protected their people first. It confused her. The Valkyr believed that personal glory and power made a warrior strong, but the humans seemed strongest when they stood together. One evening, Kara sat alone in her quarters, polishing her blade. The soft hum of the ship filled the air. She remembered her first duel with Adrian. The way he stood even after losing. The way his eyes refused to give up. He fought like a soldier, she whispered to herself. But his strength came from something else. Her communicator chimed. "General, the humans have launched a counterattack," Rin reported. "They are advancing toward the supply station in the south." Kara stood immediately. "Prepare my shuttle." "I will lead the defense myself," Rin blinked. "General, it's a small human unit. You don't need to risk." "I will decide what is risk," she said, her tone final. Within minutes, Kara descended to the planet once again, battle beneath the red sky. The battlefield was a wasteland of steel and dust. The setting sun painted the sky deep red as Valkyr and human forces clashed once more. Adrian led a small strike team through the broken remains of a refinery. Their goal was simple: destroy the Valkyr's fuel reserves and slow their operations. He moved swiftly, silent and focused. Every motion was careful, every order clear. "Stay low. We move when their scanners turn east." But the Valkyr were not easily fooled. Kara had arrived with her elite guards. The humans ran right into them, the air filled with energy blasts. "Metal burned! Cover fire!" Adrian shouted, diving behind a fallen beam. He fired back with precision. 2 of his soldiers were pinned down, unable to move. Kara's voice echoed over the chaos. "Captain Holt, you return again." He turned and saw her across the battlefield, her armor reflecting the red light. She stood tall and calm, like a figure carved from silver. Adrian raised his weapon. "We have to stop meeting like this." Her expression softened slightly. "Perhaps you should stop attacking my stations." Adrian smiled despite the danger. "Then you should stop invading our planet." Kara raised her hand and the shooting paused. Both sides froze, confused by her gesture. "Your courage is wasted here, human. Surrender and I will spare your people." Adrian shook his head. "You don't understand. We don't fight because we want to win. We fight because we can't stop protecting what's ours." Kara's eyes narrowed. "You fight for what you love." "Yes," Adrian said. "And that makes us dangerous." Without warning, a new explosion tore through the ground. Neither of them had planned it. It was a fuel cell igniting from stray shots. The blast threw soldiers from both sides into the air. Kara's armor cracked and Adrian's visor shattered. Dust and heat filled the air. When the smoke cleared, both armies had retreated to regroup, leaving only Kara and Adrian trapped under fallen debris. trapped together. The world around them was silent except for the creaking of metal. Kara tried to move but realized her leg was pinned. Adrian coughed, wiping dust from his face. He spotted her struggling and hesitated. She was his enemy, but she was also alive. Without thinking too long, he crawled closer and pushed the beam off her armor. "Can you stand?" he asked. Kara stared at him in disbelief. "You help your enemy?" Adrian shrugged. "You'd do the same." "I would not," she said honestly. "But I will remember this." They sat in the dim light of the burning wreckage, listening to the distant sounds of battle fading away. Kara spoke quietly. "Your people are brave. I cannot deny that. But bravery without power leads to extinction." Adrian looked at her, his voice calm. "And power without compassion leads to emptiness." Her violet eyes met his. "You believe compassion makes you strong?" "Yes," he said simply. "Because it gives us a reason to fight." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was not of enemies, but of two warriors beginning to understand one another. Kara finally said, "You are strange, Captain Holt. Among my kind, mercy is weakness. Among yours it seems to be strength," he smiled faintly. "Maybe both sides have something to learn." The rescue hours later, search drones found them. Valkyr troops surrounded the area and saluted as Kara was pulled from the wreckage. Adrian stood quietly as they aimed their weapons at him. "General, this human—" Rin began, but Kara raised a hand. "Lower your weapons," Rin hesitated. "But I said lower them." Her voice carried authority that no one dared question. She turned to Adrian. "Go, this battle is over." He frowned. "You're letting me walk away?" Kara nodded slowly. "You saved my life. Today that is enough." Adrian nodded respectfully. "Then I'll see you again, General." Kara watched as he limped away into the dust. When Rin approached later, his tone was full of disbelief. "General, why let him live?" "He is the enemy," Kara answered quietly. "He is more than that. He is a mirror showing us what we lack." Rin looked confused but said nothing more. Honor in the fireback on her ship. Kara stood in silence. She removed her damaged armor and looked at her reflection. For the first time, she felt uncertain about her people's path. All her life she had been taught that honor came from victory. But now she began to think. Maybe honor came from understanding. She recorded a message to the Dominion Council. "The humans of Erebos Prime are not to be underestimated. Their will is stronger than any weapon. Their courage is not born from conquest but from love of their world. We must change how we see them." The message ended. Kara sat quietly, remembering Adrian's words. Power without compassion leads to emptiness. For the first time, she truly understood them. Echoes of respect on the ground. Adrian returned to his base. His men cheered when they saw him alive, but he didn't smile. He looked up at the stars, knowing Kara was somewhere up there. "She's different," he said softly to Mira. "She's starting to see us." Mira nodded. "And what about us, sir? Do we see them?" Adrian thought for a long moment. Maybe we're both learning the same lesson. That strength isn't just in muscles or machines. It's in the heart. As the night settled over Erebos Prime, both warrior and soldier, alien and human, stared at the same sky. Enemies by duty but bound by something greater. Respect. The war was far from over. But something inside both of them had already changed. Kara no longer fought just to win. Adrian no longer fought just to survive. Now both fought to prove that honor and humanity could exist even in the heart of war. The sun rose over Erebos Prime, its light breaking through a sky filled with drifting smoke. The land was scarred, the air heavy with dust and heat, yet even in that ruined world the humans stood tall. Their defenses had taken damage, but their spirit burned brighter than ever. General Kara Veln stood on a ridge outside the main city, her armor scratched from the last battle. Around her, Valkyr soldiers repaired equipment and prepared for the next assault. The humans had fought harder than anyone expected. Lieutenant Rin, her second officer, stepped beside her. "General, the humans lost 3 strongholds last night. Shall we press the attack before they rebuild?" Kara didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where thin plumes of smoke marked the human positions. She remembered the human captain, the one who refused to fall. The image of him standing again and again replayed in her mind. "Not yet," she said finally. Rin blinked in confusion. "General?" Kara turned toward him. "I want to study them. These humans fight differently. They are weak in body but strong in something else. I wish to understand what drives them. Rin frowned. Understanding enemies is wise, but they are only humans. You risk giving them too much importance. Kara smiled slightly, but her gaze was cold. Every enemy who bleeds us deserves attention, Lieutenant. Remember that. Inside the human camp far across the valley, Captain Adrian Holt stood inside a makeshift command tent. Maps and holograms glowed around him. His right arm was wrapped in bandages from the fight with Kara, but he didn't show pain. His troops watched him quietly, waiting for orders. He pointed at the map. They've stopped their advance. That means they're thinking, which also means they're cautious. One of his lieutenants, Mira Chen, stepped forward. Sir, what if they're preparing something big? Maybe an orbital strike? Adrian shook his head. If they wanted to destroy us completely, they would have done it already. They're testing us, and we'll make them regret it. He looked at his people, miners, engineers, farmers, and soldiers. They were tired but still willing. They think we'll break, he said softly. But as long as we keep fighting smart, we'll keep surprising them. Someone asked, Sir, what about their leader, the one you fought? Adrian's eyes hardened slightly. General Kara Velen, she's skilled, disciplined, and dangerous. But she's not cruel. She fights with honor. That makes her predictable. He smiled faintly. We can use that. The second battle 2 days later, the Valkyr launched another attack, but this time, the humans were ready. They had turned wrecked vehicles into energy traps and set up a maze of mirrors to confuse scanners. Kara led her troops through the canyons, confident but alert. Her armor shimmered, her weapon ready. But when her forces entered the narrow passage, everything changed. Light beams split in every direction, reflecting off mirrors. Valkyr sensors malfunctioned. Hidden charges exploded from the cliffs. Kara quickly realized it was a trap. Pull back. Regroup, she ordered, her voice calm but firm. Her soldiers followed, but the humans were already striking from above. Explosions echoed through the rocks. Kara turned and saw human drones flying in strange patterns. They weren't advanced, but they moved unpredictably, zigzagging, dropping small charges, distracting her troops. These machines? They behave like insects, Rin shouted. No, Kara replied, watching closely. They behave like humans. Unpredictable but clever. She drew her blade and charged into the smoke. Her soldiers followed her lead. One by one, the traps were destroyed. The humans retreated again, disappearing like ghosts. But Kara was not satisfied with victory. She knew they had done this intentionally, to learn her army's limits. And somewhere out there, she knew the human captain was watching. The message that night. As Kara inspected the battlefield, she found something unusual. A small metal device lay among the ruins of a destroyed drone. It was blinking with a faint blue light. Carefully, she picked it up. A small hologram flickered to life. Captain Adrian Holt's face appeared. General, the recording said, his voice calm but firm. I know you're watching us just as we're watching you. You fight with skill and honor, but this planet isn't yours. Every inch of it has human sweat in the soil. You can win battles here, but you'll never truly own it. The message ended, leaving Kara silent. Rin looked uneasy. They taunt you, General. Should I destroy it? No, Kara said softly. He doesn't taunt. He speaks truth for his kind. They defend because this world is part of them. Rin frowned. You almost sound impressed. Kara didn't answer. She stared at the small blue light until it faded. Something about the message lingered in her thoughts, the tone of conviction, the courage to speak directly to an enemy far stronger than himself. For the first time, she began to wonder if humans fought not because they sought victory, but because they could not live without freedom. Reflections of two worlds that same night. In the human camp, Adrian looked up at the stars. The Valkyr ships were visible as tiny glowing dots in orbit. He thought about the general he had faced. He respected her skill. She could have killed him in their first fight, but she didn't. Maybe it was pride, or maybe something else, honor, perhaps. Mira approached him quietly. Sir, you look like you're thinking. Adrian smiled faintly. Thinking about the alien who's trying to wipe us out. She laughed softly. Strange thing to think about. Maybe, Adrian said. But if we ever want peace, we have to understand why our enemies fight. I think she's not fighting for hatred. She's fighting for belief. Just like we are. Mira shook her head. Belief doesn't make the bomb smaller. No, Adrian replied. But it makes people stronger. A duel in the rain 2 days later. A storm rolled over the valley. Thick rain and wind that drowned all sensors. Both armies paused, unable to fight properly. Kara used the time to scout personally, walking alone into the storm to study the terrain. But she wasn't alone for long. Through the mist, she saw a figure moving carefully between the rocks. Adrian. He noticed her too. For a moment, both froze, realizing they were unarmed except for small side weapons. Kara lifted her hand slowly. "You came without your army, human." Adrian replied, his voice almost lost in the wind. "Same as you, General." The storm raged between them. Lightning flashed, revealing 2 silhouettes, one of alien power, one of human will. Kara tilted her head slightly. "You send messages instead of surrender, why?" "Because we don't surrender to those who don't understand us," Adrian said. "Understand?" She echoed. "I understand enough. You fight, you die. You lose," he smiled faintly. "You understand our weapons, not our reasons." Kara frowned. "Then tell me, human, why fight when defeat is certain?" Adrian looked at her through the rain. "Because living without freedom is a slower death." For a long moment, Kara said nothing. The rain fell harder, drumming on her armor. She saw something in his eyes, a kind of strength that couldn't be measured. Not physical, not tactical, something deeper. She finally said, "You speak like a warrior of spirit." He smiled. "Maybe I learned it from fighting people like you." A soft laugh escaped her. "Perhaps." Then, without warning, a sudden explosion echoed in the distance, stray artillery. Both of them turned instantly toward the sound. Kara shouted, "Your people! They're in danger!" Adrian ran, and surprisingly Kara followed him. Together they reached the burning ridge where a Valkyr patrol and a human defense unit had clashed by mistake. Without hesitation, Kara used her strength to lift debris and pull wounded humans from the fire, while Adrian covered her from falling wreckage. Neither spoke, but for a brief moment they worked side by side, 2 enemies saving lives together. When the fire finally dimmed, Kara stood silently, her armor covered in ash. Adrian looked at her with quiet surprise. "You didn't have to help," he said. Kara replied softly. "A true warrior protects life, not only takes it." Before either could say more, Valkyr ships appeared overhead. Kara stepped back quickly. "Go, Captain. If my soldiers see me with you, they'll attack." Adrian nodded. "Then I'll see you again on the battlefield." Kara looked at him one last time. "Yes, but now I will not underestimate you." She disappeared into the storm, leaving Adrian standing in the rain, wondering if enemies could ever truly understand each other. A new understanding. When Kara returned to her ship, she stood alone in the observation chamber, watching lightning flash over the planet below. Rin entered cautiously. "General, our scouts report humans are rebuilding faster than expected. Should we prepare the main strike?" Kara didn't turn around. "Not yet," Rin hesitated. "You hesitate too much lately, General. These humans—" She cut him off gently but firmly. "Lieutenant, tell me, what makes a warrior strong?" "Discipline, power, training." Kara shook her head. "Those things make one skilled, not strong. Strength comes from the reason behind the blade." Rin looked puzzled. "You speak like them now." "Maybe I am starting to understand them," she said quietly. As the storm cleared outside, Kara's reflection appeared faintly on the glass. Half warrior, half thinker. And for the first time in her long career, she felt something new in her heart. A question she could not yet answer. What if strength is not what I've been fighting for, but what they already have? The universe was wide, filled with countless stars and endless empires, but only one name made every species tremble: General Kara Veln of the Valkyr Dominion. She was known as the Undefeated Blade, the conqueror of 12 worlds and the pride of her kind. Her silver armor shone like a star's reflection, and her deep violet eyes burned with a warrior's fire. Kara had been raised in war since childhood. To the Valkyr, strength was not only a skill, bro, it was life itself. They believed that only the strongest had the right to rule, and Kara had proved her strength 100 times over. Every battle she fought became a lesson to others. Every victory a song of her glory among her people. There was one saying often spoken in admiration of her: "No creature can stand before Kara and live." And she believed that, especially about humans. To the Valkyr, humans were nothing special. short-lived, soft-skinned, and too emotional to be true warriors. When the Valkyr soldiers spoke of humanity, they laughed. They said humans fought with luck and noise, not with skill or power. Kara never bothered to learn more. She had faced many species, and humans seemed no different, until she was ordered to lead an invasion against a distant human colony called Erebos Prime. The call to conquer one morning aboard her flagship, the Valiant Storm. Kara stood on the command deck as the stars drifted slowly beyond the glass. Her second officer, Lieutenant Rin, approached with a bow. "General, the Dominion Council has chosen you to lead the final campaign on Erebos Prime," he announced. "The humans there have refused to surrender. They claim that planet is their home." Kara tilted her head slightly. "They claim ownership of a rock barely worth mining?" "Yes, General," Rin said carefully. "They have fortified their cities and built defenses. They even turned their mining machines into weapons." A faint smile touched Kara's lips. "So they are stubborn as well as foolish." To her, this mission was simple: arrive, conquer, and return in glory. She was already planning how quickly she could finish the campaign. The Valkyr fleet was massive, while the humans had only a few ships and ground units. But she didn't know that on Erebos Prime, one man had already sworn to defend it to his last breath. The human defender in the rocky plains of Erebos Prime. Captain Adrian Holt stood among the ruins of an old mining outpost, his eyes scanning the sky. He was tall but lean, with short brown hair and a steady, calm face that gave courage to those who saw him. Behind him, hundreds of colonists, soldiers, engineers, and ordinary families were working to build shields and barriers. They knew what was coming. The Valkyr Dominion was not just an army. It was a storm that destroyed everything in its path. Adrian had fought the Valkyr once before, years ago, on another world. He had seen their power, their armor, their weapons, but he had also seen something else. They underestimated humans. While others prepared for evacuation, Adrian stayed behind. He believed that Erebos Prime was more than a colony. It was proof that humans could stand strong even on the edge of the galaxy. When his officers suggested retreat, he simply said, "If we leave today, they'll follow us tomorrow. So we stand here. We fight here." His calm confidence spread through his troops like fire. The miners turned into fighters. The engineers became tacticians. And the people found courage they never knew they had. Far above the planet, Kara's fleet was arriving. The first encounter. The sky burned blue as the Valkyr warships entered orbit. Massive silver vessels shaped like blades cast long shadows across the land. Every human eye turned upward in silence. Inside her command ship, Kara stood before the view screen. "Begin orbital scans," she ordered. "Let us see what kind of resistance these humans offer." Rin reported. Scanners showed defensive walls and hidden artillery, small energy signatures, primitive weapons by our standards. Kara nodded. "Still, they try. I will grant them that." The invasion began the next morning. Valkyr transports descended through the clouds carrying squads of armored warriors. The humans fired missiles and energy bursts, but most were deflected by Valkyr's shields. The ground shook as the first alien boots touched the soil of Erebos Prime. Kara herself led the charge. She always believed a true commander should fight beside her soldiers. As she stepped onto the battlefield, her armor glowed softly under the alien sun. She drew her plasma blade, a weapon that sang with light, and advanced through the smoke. The humans fought fiercely. They used clever traps, collapsing tunnels, magnetic mines, and decoy flares that confused scanners. Kara cut through several defenses with ease, but something about their tactics made her pause. They weren't panicking. They were planning. For every Valkyr soldier that advanced, the humans fell back just enough to strike again from another direction. They moved like they had practiced this 100 times. Kara raised her hand, signaling a halt. "Interesting," she murmured. "They do not run blindly." Rin asked, "Should we call for bombardment, General?" She shook her head. "No. I want to see how far they can go." A soldier's courage, meanwhile, Adrian's command team was tracking the Valkyr through holographic maps. His voice remained calm as he issued orders. "Squad 3, fall back to Sector Delta. Set explosives on the ridge before you move." When a young soldier hesitated, saying, "Sir, there's too many of them," Adrian placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Numbers don't decide the fight. Heart does. Remember that." Hours passed and the battlefield grew hot with dust and smoke. The humans' trap slowed the Valkyr advance, but eventually, Kara broke through their lines. She moved like a silver flame, her blade cutting through barriers as if they were paper. Finally, she reached a ruined command tower and found a lone figure standing among the debris. It was Adrian. He held a rifle in one hand, his armor scratched and cracked. His face was covered in dirt, but his eyes were steady. Kara tilted her head slightly. "You are the leader here, human." Adrian nodded. "Someone has to be." She studied him for a moment. He was smaller, slower, unarmored compared to her kind, yet he didn't step back. His stance was firm, his gaze unbroken. "You know who I am?" Kara asked. "General Kara Veln," he replied calmly, "the undefeated warrior of the Valkyr Dominion." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Then you also know you cannot win." Adrian adjusted his grip on his rifle. "Maybe not, but winning isn't always about who's left standing." For a second, neither moved. Then Kara charged, the test of strength. The air exploded with light as Kara's blade met Adrian's rifle. Sparks flew. The weapon cracked under the impact, but Adrian didn't stop. He rolled aside, grabbing a metal rod from the ground and swinging it with surprising strength. Kara blocked easily, but his movement surprised her. Fast, unpredictable, and fearless. Humans, she thought, shouldn't move like this. "You fight without fear," she said between strikes. Adrian replied through heavy breaths. "You fight without heart." Her next strike knocked him to the ground. His armor split and the pain burned through him, yet he pushed himself up again. Kara stared confused. "You can't win. Why do you keep standing?" "Because my people are still out there," he said simply. "And they're watching." Something in his words struck her deeply. She had fought many who begged for mercy or cursed her name. But this human, he fought not for himself but for others. Finally, Kara delivered a sweeping strike that threw Adrian backward. His weapon fell, but before she could finish the fight, he raised a small detonator and smiled faintly. "Checkmate," he whispered. The ground under Kara's feet suddenly glowed. Hidden explosives, placed before the fight. The blast threw her back, not enough to kill but enough to end the duel. As dust settled, she looked up to see Adrian limping away, his figure fading into the smoke. For the first time in years, Kara lay still, stunned. Not by pain, but by a feeling she hadn't known in ages. Respect. She looked at the sky, where human aircraft moved like flocks of birds, still fighting. "They fight, even when they cannot win," she whispered. And for the first time, General Kara Veln began to wonder if true strength had a different meaning than she had been taught.